AITA for canceling the wedding after my fiancée told me to apologize to her ex? My name is Ethan. I'm 31, and until last spring, I lived in a 2-bedroom condo just outside downtown Nashville, close enough to hear Broadway on a bad traffic night, but far enough away that I could still drink coffee on my balcony without stepping over tourists. I work as an IT project manager for a hospital network, which sounds more boring than it is, but it pays my bills, helped me buy my place before prices got ridiculous, and gave me the kind of steady life I used to be proud of. I was engaged to Maren, 29, a wedding photographer with this easy, golden kind of charm. She could walk into a room full of strangers and somehow make everyone feel like they had been invited there personally. She remembered birthdays. She brought soup when people were sick. She knew the best angles for photos, the best light in any room, and the exact thing to say when someone felt awkward. At least, that was the version of her I thought I knew. We had been together for 3 years and engaged for 8 months. Maren moved into my condo after her lease ended, and I told her not to worry about paying full rent because we were building a life together anyway. She helped with groceries and some utilities, but I covered the mortgage, insurance, HOA fees, repairs, and most of the wedding deposits because my income was steadier. I never held that over her. I honestly liked being able to provide stability. I grew up in a house where money arguments could turn a regular Tuesday into a 3-day Cold War, so peace mattered to me. I wanted a calm home. I wanted Sunday morning coffee, shared grocery lists, a dog eventually, maybe kids if we both still wanted them after a few years. From the outside, we looked solid. Our friends called us the balanced couple. I was the spreadsheet guy. Maren was the vision. I kept track of vendor deposits, cancellation windows, payment due dates, and hotel blocks. She handled colors, floral ideas, engagement photos, and the social side of everything. Most serious conversations happened at the kitchen island because neither of us ever sat at the dining table unless people were over. That island had seen us laugh over bad takeout, argue about cabinet space, fold laundry, sign vendor contracts, and choose our wedding menu while eating leftover hot chicken straight out of the container. Then Leo showed up. Leo was Maren's ex-boyfriend from before me. I had met him twice in passing at group events, and both times he had given me the kind of handshake that felt like a test. He was 30, worked in freelance creative strategy, which seemed to mean a different thing every time someone asked, and had this relaxed confidence that made people mistake him for being deeper than he was. One Thursday night in April, Maren stood at the kitchen island while I was rinsing a coffee mug and said, "Can I ask you something without you getting weird?" That sentence never leads anywhere good. I dried my hands and said, "Depends on what weird means." She gave me a look. Leo's going through a hard time. I could already feel my shoulders tighten. He and his roommate had a falling out, she continued, and his contract fell through. He just needs somewhere to stay for maybe 2 weeks. He doesn't really have anyone else here. I looked at her for a second, waiting for the part where she explained why this had to be my guest room. She stepped closer. "I know it's not ideal, but he's basically family at this point. We've known each other forever." "He's your ex," I said. "He's my friend," she corrected quickly, "and he has respected our relationship." I didn't answer right away. That was one of my habits. When something made me uncomfortable, I took a minute because I didn't trust myself to react cleanly. Maren used to say she loved that about me. Later, she would use it against me. "It's 2 weeks?" I asked. 2 weeks, she said. 3 at the absolute most. "And he knows this is temporary?" "Of course." I wanted to say no. I should have said no. But I didn't want to be the jealous fiancé who made a person sleep in his car because I couldn't handle my future wife having history before me. I told myself mature people helped when they could. I told myself trust meant not treating every uncomfortable situation like a threat. So I said, "Okay, 2 weeks." Maren wrapped her arms around me and kissed my cheek. "Thank you. Seriously, this is why I love you." For the first few days, Leo was careful. Too careful, honestly. He called me man every other sentence, wiped the counter after using it, kept his duffel bag tucked neatly in the guest room, and offered to buy toilet paper like he was auditioning for the role of considerate houseguest. By day 5, his shoes were permanently by the door. By day 8, his oat milk was in the fridge, his protein bars were in the pantry, and his laundry was in our dryer. By day 12, he was using my French press before I got up. I know that sounds small, But there is something strange about walking into your own kitchen at 7 a.m. and seeing your fiancé's ex standing there in sweatpants, drinking coffee from the mug your sister gave you for Christmas. "Morning," he said, lifting the mug like he lived there. I stared at it. He noticed. "Hope this one is okay." Marin said mugs are communal. Marin came in behind him wearing one of my old t-shirts and said, "You're making that face." "What face?" "The face where you're pretending not to be irritated." I was going to use the French press. "There's still coffee left," Leo said. There was about half a cup. Marin opened the fridge and said, "Ethan, don't start the day like this." That became the pattern. Leo would step over a line just enough for me to notice, and Marin would act like my noticing was the real problem. The 2 weeks passed. Then 3. Then 6. Every time I brought it up, Marin had a reason. He has an interview next week. He's waiting to hear back from a client. He's embarrassed. "Ethan, don't make it worse." He's trying. "You're making this weird." That last one became her favorite. One Saturday, I went to Publix after a long week of server outages at work. I was tired, hungry, and already annoyed because July had decided to start early and our air conditioning was making a clicking sound that meant spending money. I opened the shared grocery list and saw someone had added sparkling water, cinnamon protein cereal, oat milk, turkey jerky, and some expensive cold brew I never bought. I texted Marin, "Did you add all this?" She replied a minute later, "Leo did. Just grab it and he'll Venmo you." I stood in the cereal aisle staring at my phone. "He can get his own groceries." Her response came fast. "Please don't be petty. It's groceries." I bought the items because I didn't feel like having a fight in the middle of Publix, but when I got home, Leo was in my assigned parking spot. Not the visitor spot. Not the street. My spot. I carried the grocery bags up from the guest parking lot in 2 trips while he sat on the couch with his laptop open, one foot resting on my coffee table. "Thanks for grabbing that stuff," he said without looking up. "I'll hit you back." I put the bags on the kitchen island. "You parked in my spot." "Oh yeah?" The visitor pass was gone. It was hanging by the door. He frowned like that was news. "My bad." Marin looked up from editing photos at the dining table. "Babe, it's one day. It's my parking spot." And he said my bad. Leo lifted one hand. "My bad again." It was casual. That was what bothered me. He wasn't apologizing because he thought he had done something wrong. He was apologizing because he knew it made me look unreasonable if I kept going. A few days later, he borrowed my truck. I found out because I was leaving for work and my truck was gone. I called Marin first. "Hey," she said, sounding distracted. "What's up? Where's my truck?" A pause. "Oh, Leo needed to pick up some lighting equipment for a shoot." I closed my eyes. "Did he ask you?" "He asked if we had a car he could use." "That's not asking me." "Ethan," he was in a bind. "It's my truck. He'll be back soon." I ended up taking a rideshare to the hospital network office, where I spent the morning fixing a server issue while trying not to think about my own vehicle being driven around Nashville by my fiancé's ex. When Leo returned it that evening, the gas tank was nearly empty. "Sorry about that," he said, tossing the keys onto the kitchen island. Traffic was wild. I looked at Marin. She looked at me like she was warning me not to embarrass her. So I said, "Don't use my truck again without asking me." Leo smiled a little. "Fair." Marin waited until he went into the guest room before she turned on me. "You didn't have to say it like that." "Like what?" "Like he's some random guy off the street. He took my truck without asking." He asked me, "It's not your truck." Her face changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Her mouth tightened. "Wow. What? So that's how it is? Your condo, your truck, your rules." I stared at her. "Yes, actually. When it comes to my truck, yes." She shook her head and walked away. That was the first time I realized Marin had started treating anything I owned as something she could grant access to, as long as she called it generosity. The wedding planning got strange after that. At first, Leo just sat nearby during vendor calls because he was working on his laptop. Then he started making comments. When we had a video call with our DJ, Leo leaned over from the couch and said, "Marin hates cheesy first dance songs." I looked at him. "We've got it handled." He grinned. "I had a head start, man." The DJ laughed awkwardly. Marin smiled like it was harmless. Another night, we were going over venue photos, and Leo walked behind us, glanced at the laptop, and said, "That barn wall is going to photograph terribly. She needs warmer textures." "She?" I said. The wedding, he replied, but he was looking at Marin. Marin tilted the laptop toward him. Actually, what do you think of the ceremony space? I sat there, hands folded, feeling like I had been quietly moved out of my own wedding. When I brought it up later, Marin sighed and rubbed her forehead. He's a creative person. He notices things. So do I. You notice budgets and deadlines. That's not an insult. I didn't say it was. But she did. Not directly. Marin rarely said the sharp part out loud. She wrapped it in soft words, so if I reacted, I looked like I was swinging at fog. Around that time, she started talking about selling the condo. Not casually, either. Constantly. We should think about a fresh start after the wedding, she said one night while we ate takeout at the island. Leo was in the guest room with the door half open, which had also become normal somehow. What kind of fresh start? I don't know. Maybe something outside the city. Somewhere near the water. I laughed a little. I work in hospital IT. I'm not exactly a lake house influencer. She smiled, but not with her eyes. You could work remote more. I bought this place because it made sense for my life. Our life is changing. I'm not selling right after the wedding. She set down her fork. Why do you always shut things down before we even dream about them? I'm not shutting it down. I'm saying selling my condo is a major decision. Our condo, she said. The room got very quiet. I looked at her. Marin. She lifted her hands. I know your name is on it. I'm talking emotionally. Leo's door clicked shut. That was when my discomfort turned into suspicion. A few days later, the first real clue appeared on the shared tablet we kept on the kitchen island for recipes, calendars, and wedding planning. I was making coffee before work when the screen lit up with a Google Calendar notification. Lake Property Tour, Cedar Bend. Marin plus Leo. 11:30 a.m. I stood there with the coffee scoop in my hand, reading it twice. Marin walked in wearing leggings and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair twisted on top of her head. What is this? I asked. She glanced at the tablet, then at me. A location scout. For what? A styled shoot. With Leo? He knows the owner's cousin or something. Why wasn't I told? Because it has nothing to do with you. I let out a short laugh because I couldn't help it. You've been pushing me to sell my condo and move near a lake, and now you have a lake property tour with your ex, and it has nothing to do with me? Her expression hardened. You are snooping now. It popped up on our shared calendar. You're making this weird again. There it was. I went to work that morning with a pressure behind my eyes that didn't go away even after 2 coffees. My team was dealing with a system outage affecting appointment scheduling, and while everyone else was talking about backup queues and vendor escalation, all I could think was, why would Marin and Leo need a property tour? At lunch, I sat in my car in the parking garage and opened the shared tablet remotely through the account we both used for wedding planning files. I'm not proud of the feeling I had doing it. It felt ugly. It felt like crossing into a part of my relationship I had tried very hard not to enter. But then I found the invoice. It was a PDF in a folder labeled Brand Miscellaneous. The invoice heading said, Lakeside Brand Launch, Initial Visual Package. The client name was not Ethan and Marin. It was M+L Retreat Creative. Marin and Leo. Not me. I stared at the PDF until my phone dimmed. The invoice was for a logo package, social media templates, a landing page mockup, and something called rental experience positioning. It wasn't proof of a crime. It wasn't proof of an affair. It was worse in a quieter way. It was proof of a plan. That afternoon, I told Grant. Grant was 45, a co-worker of mine, and the kind of man who had seen enough bad decisions to recognize one before it finished walking into the room. He kept a framed photo of his daughters on his desk and a tiny bottle of hot sauce in his drawer. He was not sentimental at work, which was why I trusted him. We were in the break room while the coffee machine made a sound like it was giving up. I didn't tell him everything, just enough. My fiancé's ex has been staying with us, I said. Grant slowly turned his head. That sentence already has a smell. It was supposed to be temporary. It always is. She's been pushing me to sell my place after the wedding. Now I found out she and the ex are looking at lake properties for some kind of business. Grant didn't react loudly. He just leaned back against the counter. Do not have another serious conversation verbally, he said. I frowned. What? Text, email, documents, screenshots, receipts. If someone keeps calling you insecure, start looking for what they don't want you to see. I swallowed. He continued. And don't move money around like you're angry. Move like somebody might read your decisions later. That sentence probably saved me from making a mistake. That night, I didn't confront Marin. I cooked pasta, listened to Leo complain about downtown parking, and watched Marin laugh too hard at one of his stories. Then, after they went to bed, I sat at the kitchen island and started a folder on my laptop. I named it by date. I saved the calendar notification, the invoice, screenshots of vendor accounts where my credit card had been saved, emails about wedding deposits, Venmo requests, a copy of our wedding account statements. The wedding account was not technically a joint account in the legal sense. It was a separate savings account I had opened, and Marin transferred money into it when she could. I had put in most of it, not because she forced me, but because I thought I was investing in our future. That night, I calculated every contribution. Mine, hers, refundable deposits, non-refundable retainers, upcoming payment deadlines. The numbers were not pretty. The next morning, I checked state business registrations during my lunch break. I typed in M+L Retreat Creative. There it was. An LLC, registered 4 months earlier. 2 members, Marin and Leo. For months earlier, Mended existed before Leo moved into my condo. Before his roommate problem. Before his job setback. Before the desperate, he has nowhere else, speech at the kitchen island. I felt something inside me go very still. I clicked through what was publicly available and saved everything. Then I went deeper into the shared files. Not into Marin's private accounts. Not hacking. Not anything dramatic. Just the shared wedding tablet, shared planning folders, shared calendar, and accounts connected to my cards. The messages I found were not explicit or romantic. In some ways, that made them harder to explain to people later because nobody had walked in on anything obvious. There were no dramatic photos. No secret hotel reservations. No confession. There were business notes. Financing ideas. Property wish lists. A lake town outside the city with weekend traffic and close proximity to good wedding venues. Content packages. Short-term rental projections. And then there were the lines I couldn't unread. Marin had written to Leo. Ethan is the stable part of the plan. Once the wedding is close enough, he won't back out. Leo replied. He's cautious, but he's predictable. Get him excited about the lake house as a married life thing first. Another message from Marin. He has the credit and the condo equity. We just need him to stop thinking so small. I sat at my desk at work with my hand over my mouth while a junior tech asked me if he should restart a service, and for a second, I couldn't remember what service he meant. I wasn't heartbroken in the way movies show it. I didn't cry into a steering wheel or punch a wall. It felt colder than that. Like I had been living in a house where all the furniture looked familiar, and suddenly I realized none of the doors led where I thought they did. That evening, I drove to my sister Tessa's house. Tessa is 34, older than me by 3 years and tougher than me by about 30. She lives in a small brick house in East Nashville with 2 dogs, 2 mini throw blankets, and a way of looking at you that makes lying feel pointless. She opened the door and immediately said, "You look like a man who found something." I stepped inside and handed her the folder of printed documents I had already started. She read in silence at her kitchen table. Her dogs circled my feet. The smell of lemon cleaner and dog shampoo sat in the air. When she finished, she didn't say, "Maybe there's an explanation." She didn't say, "Relationships are complicated." She said, "You need an attorney." That almost made me laugh from relief. "I'm not married yet," I said. "Exactly. Let's keep your problems as small as possible. I don't want to destroy her." Tessa looked at me over the papers. "Ethan, she is trying to build a business with her ex using your money, your home, and your fear of conflict. Protecting yourself is not destroying her." I slept on her couch that night. I told Marin I had an early work emergency and stayed near the office. It was not even completely false. My life was the emergency. The next day, Tessa connected me with Nora, a real estate attorney she knew through a friend. Nora was 52, calm in the way only people who have read too many bad contracts can be calm. Her office smelled like paper, coffee, and expensive hand lotion. She reviewed what I brought and asked precise questions. "Is Marin on the deed?" "No." "Mortgage?" "No." "Any written agreement giving her ownership?" "No." "Any shared lease?" "No." "Wedding account?" "In my name." "But she contributed." "Good. You will account for her contributions clearly. Do not touch what is hers." I nodded. Nora tapped the folder with one finger. Do not change the locks while she is living there without proper notice. Do not threaten. Do not take her property. Do not empty accounts in a way that looks punitive. Do not post this online. Keep communication written and brief. I want her out of my condo. I understand. There is a correct way to do that. We will follow it. I feel like an idiot. Nora's face softened by maybe 1 degree. People who trust their partners are not idiots. People who ignore paperwork after they know better become idiots. You are here, so don't become one. Over the next week, I became quiet in a way Maren mistook for surrender. I changed passwords on my personal accounts. I removed my card from wedding vendor portals where it should never have been saved. I called vendors directly and asked about cancellation windows, refunds, and required written notices. I saved every email as a PDF. I switched my direct deposit to a new checking account. I moved important documents, old tax files, my passport, my condo paperwork, and sentimental items to Tessa's house. I took photos of the condo and everything in it. I did not touch Maren's belongings. I did not touch Leo's. I did not yell. I did not accuse. That was the hardest part. Every morning, I still walked into the kitchen and saw Leo eating cereal at my island. Every evening, Maren still kissed my cheek like nothing had changed. She kept sending me lake house listings with captions like, "Just dreaming," and "Imagine waking up here." Once, she showed me a property with a big deck overlooking the water. "This could be us," she said. I looked at the photo and said, "Looks expensive." She smiled. "That's why people build together." I almost asked, "Which people?" Instead, I said, "Yeah." She took my answer as progress. The engagement dinner was scheduled for the following Friday at a casual restaurant in Germantown. It wasn't formal, just friends, a few relatives, tacos, margaritas, and the kind of atmosphere Maren liked because everything photographed well under string lights. I considered canceling before then, but Nora advised me to keep things clean and documented. Also, part of me needed to see whether Maren would pull back from the edge when there was still time to be honest. She didn't. Leo came to the dinner. Of course he did. He arrived with Maren, not separately. I noticed because I had driven from work and met them there. She got out of his car laughing at something he said, then waved at me like I was the one joining them. Inside, our friends filled a long table. Tessa sat near the end, watching everything with the expression of someone waiting for a raccoon to climb out of a wedding cake. For the first hour, I was polite. I answered questions about work. I smiled when people asked about the wedding. I listened to Maren talk about floral installations we had not paid for and a late-night snack bar that would absolutely wreck the budget. Then Leo leaned back in his chair and said, "I'm just saying, after the wedding, I better still have guest room rights." A few people laughed. My fork stopped halfway to my plate. Maren gave a small, nervous smile. "Leo." "What?" he said. "I've put in my time. That room has basically accepted me." The table chuckled again, less comfortably this time. I set my fork down. "No," I said. Leo looked at me, still smiling. "No. The guest room was never yours." The table went quiet in pieces. First Tessa, then the friend beside her, then the couple across from me. Leo's smile thinned. "It was a joke." "I know," I said. "I'm clarifying anyway." Maren's face flushed. "Ethan." I looked at her. "What? Don't do this here." "I'm not doing anything. I'm just saying my guest room doesn't come with rights." Leo raised both hands. "Man, I didn't realize we were in court." Tessa muttered, "Not yet." Maren heard it. Her eyes snapped toward my sister, then back to me. The rest of the dinner limped along. People talked too loudly about safe topics. Someone asked about honeymoon plans, and Maren answered in a bright voice that made my skin feel tight. Afterward, in the parking lot, Maren waited until most people had left before she turned on me. "What is wrong with you?" I stood beside my truck, keys in hand. "A lot less than you're about to say." "You humiliated him. He made a joke about having rights to a room in my condo." "It was harmless." "It wasn't harmless to me." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You have been cold for days. You've been acting suspicious, judgmental, and controlling. Leo feels unwelcome because you keep making little comments." "He is unwelcome." Her mouth opened slightly. I continued, "He was supposed to stay 2 weeks. It's been almost 2 months. He had nowhere else. He has had time to find somewhere else." She crossed her arms. "If you want this wedding to continue, you need to apologize." I almost laughed. Apologize to who? To Leo? In front of everyone you made uncomfortable. I looked through the restaurant window. Leo was near the entrance, pretending not to watch us. Marin's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. Ethan, I love you, but I cannot marry someone who treats people I care about like burdens. I thought of the LLC, the invoice, the property tour, the messages calling me the stable part of the plan. I thought of every time I had swallowed my discomfort because I wanted to be fair. Then I said, okay. She blinked. Okay. Okay. Some of the tension left her shoulders because she thought she had won. Tomorrow, she said, I want you to text the group and apologize for making the night awkward. Okay. I got in my truck and drove home. She rode with Leo. That told me everything I still needed to know. I waited until they went to sleep. Then I moved. Tessa came over just after midnight with her SUV and a stack of flattened boxes. We worked quietly. Clothes from my side of the closet. My work equipment. The last of my personal files. The framed photo of my parents from before their divorce got ugly. My grandmother's watch. The tools from the hallway closet that Leo had started using like a community library. At one point, Tessa stood in the guest room doorway and looked at Leo's stuff spread across my desk, my chair, my shelves. This is wild, she whispered. I know. No, I mean this man has a candle in here. I almost laughed for the first time in days. We did not take anything that wasn't mine. We did not damage anything. We did not touch Leo's belongings except to move one of his backpacks off my office chair so I could take the chair, which I had bought. By 3 a.m., my closet was empty. My important things were gone. My truck and Tessa's SUV were loaded. Then I placed the folder on the kitchen island. Inside were copies of the LLC registration, the Lakeside brand launch invoice, screenshots of the calendar alert, vendor payment records, a breakdown of the wedding account showing Marin's contributions left untouched, and confirmation emails for cancellations where my payments were refundable. I also left the ring. Not thrown. Not hidden. Just placed in the center of a folded note. Marin, I know about M+L Retreat Creative. I know it was registered months before Leo moved in. I know about the lake property tours, the branding invoice, and the plan to use my credit, my savings, and my condo equity for a business I was never meant to own. I am ending the engagement. I have separated my funds from the wedding account and left your contributions available. I have canceled only payments tied to my personal cards where cancellation is legally allowed. Any remaining logistics can go through email. Do not contact me except in writing. Ethan. I read it twice, not because it was beautiful, but because it was clean. Then I left. I slept at Tessa's house for maybe 2 hours before my phone started vibrating across the coffee table. Marin. 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 Then texts. Where are you? What did you do? Answer me right now. Ethan, this is insane. You emptied the wedding account? You left my money but canceled the venue payment? Are you serious? Leo says you took the office chair. That last one made Tessa laugh so hard she had to cover her mouth. I did not respond until I had coffee and had forwarded everything to Nora. Then I wrote one message. I ended the engagement. I did not take your contributions. Communication can be by email. She called again. I let it ring. By noon, the friend group chat had exploded. Marin had posted first. I woke up and Ethan was gone. He took wedding money, canceled vendors, and left me with nothing because he's jealous of Leo. I'm shaking. I don't even know who he is anymore. A year earlier, I would have panicked and defended myself emotionally. I would have written paragraphs about how hurt I was, how unfair it was, how much I had tried. Instead, I sent one message. I'm not going to argue in the group chat. Since my character is being questioned, here is the timeline and documentation. Marin's contributions to the wedding account were not taken. My personal payments were canceled where legally refundable. The engagement ended after I discovered she and Leo registered a business together months ago and planned to use my finances and condo sale for a lake property I was not listed on. Then I attached a clean PDF timeline. No insults. No name calling. No dramatic captions. Just dates. LLC registration date. Leo move-in date. Lake property tour. Brand invoice. Messages about my credit and condo equity. Wedding account contribution breakdown. For about 10 minutes, nobody replied. That silence was one of the most satisfying sounds I have ever not heard. Then one of Marin's bridesmaids wrote, Marin, is this real? Marin replied, it's being twisted. Another friend wrote, the LLC date, is before Leo moved in. Marin left the chat. Leo did not comment at all. The fallout was not instant fireworks. It was smaller and more embarrassing than that. The venue kept part of the retainer, but the larger payment due the next week never went through because I had removed my card. The florist was still within a partial refund window. The photographer Marin had insisted on hiring for our wedding, which was funny considering she was a photographer herself, refused to hold the date without the next payment. The lake property tour got canceled after financing did not look as easy without my income attached. Leo stayed in the condo for 3 more days. Then he disappeared. Marin texted me once about it from a new number after I blocked her original one. Leo is gone. I hope you're happy. I stared at that message for a while. Not because I felt guilty, because it proved what I had already known and still somehow needed confirmed. Leo was not there because he was helpless. He was there because my life had been useful. Once the wedding money, condo equity, and easy financing were gone, so was he. Getting Marin out of the condo took longer and was handled properly. Nora helped me send written notice. Marin tried to argue that she had a right to stay because we had been engaged and she had built a home there. But building a home emotionally and owning one legally are not the same thing. That sounds cold. I know it does. But cold facts saved me when warm promises almost cost me everything. Marin eventually moved in with a friend from her photography circle, not one of the bridesmaids from the chat. That friendship had cooled fast after the documents came out. A few people apologized to me. A few didn't. Some quietly unfollowed her. Others kept watching from the sidelines because people love a mess when they can pretend they are concerned. I didn't make a public post. I didn't make a scene. I didn't try to ruin her business. The truth had already done enough. For weeks, I felt strange in my own condo. Even after Marin's things were gone, I would still expect to hear Leo's cereal bowl clink against the sink or Marin's voice telling me I was making something weird. The guest room bothered me the most. It smelled faintly like someone else's cologne and still had dents in the carpet where the bed had been. One Saturday morning, Tessa showed up with paint samples and 2 coffees. "We're fixing the haunted room," she said. "It's not haunted. Ethan, a man named Leo, lived in there rent-free and said he had guest room rights. That room needs cleansing. We repainted it a deep green-gray that made the afternoon light look calm. I replaced the guest bed with a real desk. I mounted shelves. I set up my monitors properly instead of working half the time from the kitchen island. I bought a new office chair, partly because I needed one and partly because the old one had become too funny to look at. A month later, Marin sent one final email. The subject line was, "Our future." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got me. She wrote that I had embarrassed her, abandoned her, and ruined everything we were supposed to build. She said couples were supposed to support each other's dreams. She said I had let insecurity destroy our future. I read it twice. Then I realized she was right about one thing. I had ruined her future. Not our future. Hers. The one where I sold my condo, signed papers, funded a lake house, smiled in wedding photos, and spent years being told I was paranoid every time I noticed I was being used. I did not reply. I closed the email, blocked that address too, and walked out to my balcony with a cup of coffee. Nashville was already loud in the distance. A delivery truck was blocking part of the street below. Somewhere nearby, someone's dog was barking like it had serious business to announce. My condo was quiet behind me, fully mine again. For the first time in months, the silence did not feel like something waiting to break. It felt like peace. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.